Welcome to Living Your Greatness. Each episode, we bring on great people to inspire you to achieve your greatness. We discuss topics all related to health and wellness. Listen to world-class stories, learn valuable lessons, and turn knowledge into action. It is now time for you to unlock your inner greatness. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Living Your Greatness. This is your host, Ben Mummy, and today we have a new guest to the show, and his name is Mel Bellissimo. He is an entrepreneur, a professional Muay Thai coach, a father, and most importantly, a student of life. Mel founded Decorus Life, which offers leadership and life coaching services to bring clarity and a deeper sense of connection for men who manage a nutso amount of responsibilities. Also, Mel co-founded DudeBuddha, where he provides consulting services to gyms, schools, recreational facilities, and setting up Muay Thai programs. Mel has been part of Muay Thai community for over 20 years, where he supported thousands of people from entrepreneurs, founders, and children. Whether in or outside the ring, the ability to control the impact of his emotions in order to achieve clarity and focus under stress is a major factor to winning. So Mel, welcome to the show. It is a pleasure to have you on today.
Thanks, Ben. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for thinking about me and bringing me on your show. It's really great to be here.
So Mel, if we could just start off, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you spend your formative years growing up, and how did entrepreneurship come into your life?
Yeah, so I always joke and say I was always a jock growing up. So I played professional soccer here. I played in the National Soccer League here in Canada when I was a kid. I grew up in Toronto. I have two much older brothers born to Italian immigrant parents who came to Toronto in the 50s. And so I was, very blessed, sort of a standard, what I would call middle class upbringing. I was very lucky. My parents are wonderful, wonderful people. They certainly came to this country with the idea of providing their own family with a better life. And no crazy story from that perspective, but lots of learning about how even old paradigms and sort of the things that they had to deal with growing up has changed now. One of the things for me is about energy. I'm an energy guy. So, their energy of sort of keeping everything and making sure they have, because there was so much lack in the times of war. But or else I played professional soccer. My team folded, got into powerlifting and sort of went to the gym as early as 15. Had a really bad motorcycle accident in my early 20s. And then started Muay Thai right after that, where I spent what I call an illustrious career in Muay Thai. And then just 3 short years ago, moved to Ottawa after spending most of my life in Toronto. And then coming here to Ottawa was sort of a huge change for me. And and then of course our pandemic hit, our global pandemic hit, and then I decided that I was going to fulfill a dream of becoming what I coined myself as a clarity coach, helping people bring balance, clarity, which in turn gives them awareness of their own energies and the awareness of energies outside of themselves. So sort of a brief synopsis of my life, but I would say a very blessed one for sure.
Awesome, Mel. Well, thanks for sharing that background about yourself. It's always so interesting to hear about how people kind of spend their formative years, as well as how you kind of now have made a transition in your life where Muay Thai is still part of your life, but there's other areas where you feel that you have a greater purpose of kind of what you want to serve at the moment. That being said, it's never too early or too late to become an entrepreneur. It sounds like your whole life you kind of had that entrepreneur in you. But what are important qualities that you think someone should develop as an entrepreneur?
It's a great question, Ben. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur since my early 20s, even when I got back. So I lived almost 2 years in Thailand over the course of 6 trips. And my first trip, I spent 1 full calendar year there. And then when I came back, I had to figure out what I was going to do with my life. I'd done everything. I was a baker, a construction worker, a candlestick maker. That's how I joke. I did everything, But coming back, I decided that I was going to get into and sort of make this hobby of Muay Thai as a career. So when I got hired by a gym back in the day called Bally Total Fitness, it was very entrepreneurial, because even though I was technically an employee, they never provided any clients. It was my job to go and sort of attract clients. And of course, I was doing something that was very off the beaten path in terms of the fitness industry. In 2003, most people thought Muay Thai was Mai Tai, and they thought it was like a bartending course or something. I don't know, just playing, but they just didn't really know what it was. And even with the UFC, it wasn't as big back then as it is now, But in terms of skills, I mean, look, I kind of feel like entrepreneurship, you by default become a leader. And so what are some of the qualities then that you need to be a leader? And, I would say that if I took the instructor's creed from martial arts, I remember sort of teaching this to my students in an instructor's course. I will teach this class as if it is the most important class I will ever teach. I am patient and enthusiastic, and I will lead by example. So for me, the big one is leading by example, for sure. That as an entrepreneur, if you're going to tell your staff or tell the people, your community, your family to do something, it's because you can do it. That's the most important part. For me, but there's lots of skills. There's skills you need from a your particular job set, and then sort of what I call the soft skills. But I think there's so much. I think that leading by example, number one. I think being an active listener is really, really important. I think that many people struggle with just listening, but not listening with your ears, listening with your heart. And being able to take in the energy of what's being said, not just listening to what's being heard. And then being able to do that with, being totally in the present. And then, of course, being empathetic, of course, is an important. I don't know if you want to call it skill, but some might call it an attitude. But that's important, to be empathetic, because everybody has a story, and we don't know where people come from. And we don't know what they're going through. On the outside, I'm this guy who's a Muay Thai coach, been one for 25 years, and it looks like, I got my stuff together. But the truth is that there's a lot goes on in someone's life behind the scenes, and it's important to be empathetic. So, empathetic, active listener, lead by example, and when you lead by example, to me, that encompasses all of that stuff. Because I just feel, Ben, we see leaders. I mean, we look at our own government, and we look at, people that are supposed to be leaders in their community, and, they say, do as I say, not as I do. And I don't really vibe with that, So at least those are a few. I mean, there's so many. It's a really good question, Ben. But I think that there's so many qualities that you should have as an entrepreneur. Good work ethic. Strong work ethic. You got to be able to put the time in. Respect, honor, hard work. All these things are super important.
Absolutely. And you know what? You definitely brought up some great points there. I definitely do think that leading by example is huge, right? Walking the talk, not just talking. But I also admire too that you brought up active listening skills. I feel like that's something that even really good entrepreneurs sometimes lack a bit. And there's that famous saying, right? We got 2 ears and we got one mouth, right? So we should be doing at least double the listening more than talking, right? And I do think that, there are, of course, other qualities out there that were not said. And that's okay, because there's a lot. So Mel, you have worked with many entrepreneurs. What separates a good entrepreneur from a great entrepreneur?
Another great question. I think passion has everything to do with it. I think that if you took two people that did the same job or did the same business, one did it because their motivation was the dollar bill, and the other motivation was because that there was a true passion for doing what they do. I think that there's you'll see a noticeable difference in what's being delivered. So I'm a big proponent of that, Ben. I'm a passion guy. In fact, that on the DudeBuddha website, I'm the passion Buddha, because for me, I just think that society has it a little wrong. We're taught that we have to, and I say this all the time on all my shows and podcasts, wherever I am, that you're supposed to find a good education or go get a good education. Then you're supposed to find a good pensionable job. Then you're supposed to meet a partner. Then you're supposed to have 2.2 kids. And then you're supposed to work for 30, 40 years so you can buy stuff that when you're 65, ready to enjoy the fruits of your labor, you develop cancer and die. And then don't take any of the stuff that you brought with you to wherever you go next. Sounds kind of hard for me. And I never lived like that. I've always been this passion guy. If I'm going to do something, Ben, for 40, 50, 60 hours a week, then I'm going to make sure I love to do it. So an entrepreneur who's doing what he or she loves to do is certainly by far, for me, the most important. Are you passionate in doing what it is that you do? And again, a good entrepreneur leads by example. That will always come up for me. Because many people have said, Ben, that we're not here to, many masters who've walked the planet said that we're not here to learn anything. We're actually here just to remember who we are. In fact, I remember a friend saying to me in a meditation once, he said that, he got this vision in his meditation that said, you're actually not here to teach anybody anything. But if you live the life that you're supposed to live, that people will follow, because all it means is that you're living a life that comes from your heart. And so we used to say in the world of metaphysics, because Ben, I spent so much time in metaphysics, that if the spirit is up there and your heart is here, then your brain is in the way. And the soul is the conduit between the physical and the spiritual world. So from an entrepreneurial perspective, again, passion, leading by example, those two really stick out for me, sort of off the top of my head, but providing, of course, providing good service and providing whether it's a service or a product or whatever it is, but all of that stuff, all of that stuff for sure.
I think just one comment I want to make, when it comes to passion, right? When people are in it and when they're out it, right? And when they're truly in it, kind of like you said before. To have good passion, people will feel your passion, they'll feel your energy. They're going to know when you're in it, right? So leading to my next question, what's your biggest failure and what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, failures certainly are important because, we used to say in the world of fighting, Ben, that if you never learn anything when you win the fight, you always learn when you lose the fight. And when you lose the fight, you'll hear every fighter go, okay, well, that's okay. I lost this one, but I'm going to go back to the drawing board and get after it again and make adjustments. I got to tell you that I've never said this publicly, but I think one of the biggest failures that I had in life was sort of the notion as an entrepreneur of sweat equity and what that meant. Because I had a guy who that was my manager at my MMA school. And, I think I should have brought him in as a partner long before he ended up becoming a partner. But he became a partner because there was a third party involved. And the third party had money and said, look, we're going to invest in your business, but we want to bring this person back, because he had gone and he had left my school. He went to travel and what have you, and then came back and did some other things. But I would say, Ben, that it was about really understanding what value people bring to the business and sharing in the wealth. I didn't bring him on, Ben, as a partner because I said, well, first of all, he didn't pay any money. He doesn't have any money to invest in the business. Why should I bring it? Why should I make him a partner? Ben, I think I should have made him a partner without having any money come in, because what he was going to bring to the business in terms of sweat equity, he would have had more of a vested interest in making the business succeed because he's now a partner. So I think that was my biggest business failure that I made.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And it just shows that, there's all types of failures, right? But again, like you said there, right, making sure that we learn from it, right? And it sounds like that is something that you've learned now moving forward, whether it's, future ideas or businesses or friends that are starting things, something that you could offer them, right? That advice of sweat equity.
Yeah, sweat equity. Yeah. No, in other words, sweat equity. What's that? That's like these people that are working in your business, especially from the perspective, in my perspective, it was about a manager who was at the front desk, taking care of all the payments, taking care of the sort of the front end of the business, while I was in the back working because I'm a technician, right? So as the technician, I was on the mat teaching the Muay Thai. That's what people came to the school for. They wanted to learn from me. So having somebody who's like that plays an important role, I got to tell you, it's probably what I would say to a lot of entrepreneurs is there somebody that you could bring into the business that is of major value to you, that maybe doesn't have the money to invest in your company, but if you gave them a couple of points on the business, that they would become sort of even have more of a vested interest, because of course they're now an owner. They don't want to see the business fail. So something I learned for sure. On the personal front, I mean, my God, there's so many, Ben, to choose from.
Absolutely, for sure. So my next question, how did Muay Thai come into your life, and who were your greatest mentors that inspired you to fall in love with the sport?
Yeah, so when I got into my motorcycle accident, I broke my hip in 3 spots. And all this, I couldn't walk for a long time. And I think it was a full year that I was having trouble walking again. And then, of course, once off the crutches and what have you, I walked with a bit of a limp. And then I ran into a cousin of mine at a sandwich place. And I'll never forget it. I remember it vividly, Ben. And his father was a Golden Glove boxer. He had some lots of boxing experience, but in the early to mid 90s, he took a trip to Thailand. So when I saw him after many years of not communicating with him or seeing him, he said, "Hey," I said, "Listen, Mike, are you gonna, can you take me to do some boxing? I know you were involved." He said, "Actually, I'm not doing, sort of Western boxing or traditional boxing. I'm doing this Muay Thai stuff." I said, "What's Muay Thai?" He says, "Well, it's kind of like kickboxing, except we can use our elbows and our knees." And from the moment that he took me to my first class, I'd fallen madly in love. And as far as mentors, I mean, eventually after I don't know how many years of being involved in the sport, I ended up connecting with a man from Thailand who was here doing a seminar, who ended up as sort of known as the Muhammad Ali of Muay Thai. This guy had 170 professional fights, and he lost 7, Ben. He lost 7 fights out of 170. Like a legend, bro. This guy was like next level. So he was definitely a mentor. In fact, he changed my style of Muay Thai. So certainly my old teacher, his name is Bakruk Pinsin Chai, and he studied at the Pinsin Chai camp in Bangkok, Thailand, under the tutelage of Tan Pukan Suek Pinsin Chai, who was Police Major General Pinsin Chai in the army. And that was his teacher.
Thanks for sharing that kind of background of kind of what got you into it, and after the accident, and then stumbling upon this mentor, right? Who again, 7 losses. That's pretty crazy, right?
It was amazing, bro. He was literally a computer for Muay Thai, man. Just a computer. Every time you hit him once, he hit you 4 times.
Just crazy. So leading to my next question, you are the founder of Decorus Life. So what led to the birth of this business? Tell us more about it.
Yeah, so I would start by saying that I'm a COVID casualty. That's sort of the term, I mean, the pandemic decimated the MMA world, the gyms, the restaurants, the fitness centers. These places were absolutely destroyed by the pandemic. So what happened was I think it was August 19th of 2020, I lost my job. And I was directing a Thai boxing program here in Ottawa. And anyway, I said, look, I have a choice to make. And I could have gone, Ben, and gotten myself a job. But for me, a job is an acronym for just over broke. So I could have got myself a job, but I decided that I was really going to take a chance and fulfill a dream of becoming a coach, but more than a Muay Thai coach, offering people more than a little bit of IQ in Muay Thai, but really working with people to help bring clarity, balance, and awareness to their lives. So I decided to fulfill a dream of becoming what I coined myself, a clarity coach, which, as you mentioned earlier, is like sort of like life coaching. And that was really big for me, because when I sold my school, Ben, I actually tried my hand at coaching, but more on a metaphysical sort of spiritual front. And it just wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. I didn't get the support that I needed. And it just wasn't enough to survive. I mean, I think, Ben, one of the things I found, even as I'm doing this coaching business, is that this is a tough space. This is a really tough space. To be a coach is a really, really tough thing to do. And but I'm passionate about it. And so I decided that Decorus Life. So Decorus, it's interesting, the name, because Decorus is the Latin word for beautiful. And my name, Bellissimo, is the Italian word for beautiful. So my name is Mel Bellissimo. And we decided to take that name because when we talked about life, we think about what are we looking for? Well, we want to live a beautiful life. I said, perfect. Now we're going to call it Decorus Life. And Decorus is, again, the Latin word for beautiful. And I think that's what we're all after, is to live a beautiful life. And so I decided to do that. So in August of 2020, I immediately got to work. I went and I got some certifications, and I even took a Berkeley College course in California called the science of, or the technology of music, so that I could maybe learn how to make binaural beats so that I can use it in meditations and what have you. So, yeah. So that's sort of the birth of Decorus Life.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing us that kind of background, kind of how it got going. And congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
You're getting close. I guess it's been already a year and a bit, right, that it's been created. So that's awesome. You kind of gave us a taste, I would say, but what exactly is a clarity coach?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've worked a lot on trying to, when I put content out, to understand, to help share and understand with people what a clarity coach does. So here's my thing, Ben. I think most people spend a lot of times talking about what they don't like. I think a lot of people spend a lot of time to thinking about or speaking about the things that they don't really like in their life. And because I spent 5 years studying metaphysics under one of the Buddhist monks who happened to be a bodyguard of the Dalai Lama, I kind of felt like most people, there's a couple things that most people lack. Number one is balance. And when I talk balance, I talk the balance of the triangle of body, mind, and spirit. So even you, Ben, I would ask you, if we were talking and we were sort of doing an intro call, or what I call a clarity call, I would say, listen, what do you do for the body, mind, and spirit every day? Are you exercising? Are you journaling and reading every day? Are you meditating or doing some form of reflection, meditation? And so that piece is important, because I think that in today's world, we're so distracted with so many things. We spend most of our time working, because if you're living in big cities, then there's just no balance. I mean, think about what living in Toronto must be like, when a 1-bedroom apartment costs $2,500 a month. If you make $3,000, $3,500 a month, which is a pretty good pay, I mean, what do? You spend your time surviving. You got to work. Maybe you got to put in extra hours. If you're on a salary, they say 40 hours a week, but you're working 50, maybe even 60 hours a week. You're lucky if you go to the gym. You're eating a lot of takeout food because you just don't have the energy to prepare. And this becomes routine. So taking the time, because self-love, Ben, if we're going to talk about anything today, when we talk about what I do, is I ask questions so people can self-evaluate their life. Because I still don't understand how we can give something to somebody else if we don't have it for ourselves. And one of the biggest things is love. do we have love for ourselves? Because when we give, when we have love for ourselves, we give from a full cup, not giving from an empty cup. And in giving from a full cup, you as an entrepreneur, as a leader, which is sort of ties into your first couple of questions, is what makes a great entrepreneur is that they're balanced themselves and that their cup is full. They put on their own oxygen mask before they put on somebody else's. So having balance within yourself so that I can give to my client, to my customer, to my patient, whatever it is, exactly what they need, not what you think they need. And there's a huge difference between the two. So I work on balance. The second piece is clarity. I said already that most people can tell me what they don't like, but few can tell me what it is they actually desire most. So what I do is I start sessions with a vision board because it is the most powerful tool to help you in gaining clarity. That's it. It's the most powerful tool. I'll go on record saying it. I don't think that there's anything that exists, because think about it in terms of expressions that we've heard. You create a vision board. Let's say you're using Pinterest. So what I do is I get my clients to create a pizza pie. I'm Italian. It's got to be a pizza pie. So we put in pizza pie, we cut it into 8 slices, and then we name those 8 slices the 8 most important compartments or areas of your life. And then I get you to name them. And do you know, Ben, that most people even have trouble naming 8 most important pieces of their life? They have trouble. They may get a few: career, finances, family, but there's a lot that they're missing. So my question for most people is, Ben, how is the universe or whatever you believe in going to help you if you don't even know what you want yourself? So getting clarity means that I take this pizza pie, I take these 8 pieces, and I say, listen, go and create a board for each of these. Go and spend time. What do you want out of your loving relationship? What do you want out of career? What do you want out of your tribe? And then you go and you put a picture to it. And what do they say about pictures, Ben? Pictures are worth 1,000 words.
Beautiful. I think you gave a better idea of what a clarity coach is. It's the full picture, right? It's self-love, right? But not just in one area, right? Someone could be so good financially in their life. You had mentioned earlier on, even in that Toronto picture, but maybe they're not making time for being active and being healthy and physical, right? For their physical wellness, right? So it's beautiful. It's beautiful that you're having that impact in that area and that you're taking the time to help many individuals focus on things that are really important in their life, but not in one area, across the board. In order to have a balanced life, we also must feel balance ourselves. What is the Decorus morning routine, and how can someone start off the day right?
Yeah, great question. I love that, because what this does is it provides some insight to people, to your listeners, Ben, that says, look, okay, so I need more balance. How do I get more balance? Simple. Go to decoruslife.com, put in your name and your email address. And what you're going to get is you're going to get an email with a downloadable PDF. And what I've done is I broke it down into body, mind, and spirit. And I provided 2 options for each of those: 2 for body, 2 for mind, and 2 for spirit. And here's a 7-day challenge for all of your listeners, for all the Ben Living Your Greatness fans out there in the world. Go and do a 7-day challenge. We're going to call it the Living Your Greatness 7-Day Challenge. And it's going to be 30 minutes of moving your body every day, 15 minutes of reading and journaling, and 15 minutes of meditation and reflection. 1 hour, my friend. 1 hour, Ben, dedicated to the most important person in your life, you. Dedicate 1 hour and watch what happens when you start filling your own cup so that we can provide for others. Because I think it's an innate quality in us for people to want to be there for others. It's part of who we are. That's what the light is. We remember who we are, and then we help others remember who they are. And so we do that by giving ourselves love first. So it's a 1 hour a day challenge for 7 days a week. And if you want to go a little bit further, Ben, you can tell your fans to not eat sugar. So no refined sugar for 7 days while you're doing it. No sugar in your coffee, no donuts, no cupcakes, nothing.
First off, I want to say I'm up for the challenge.
There we go.
I signed up yesterday actually, and I watched your video. So I'm already on board. So everyone else, I encourage you guys, if you want, I encourage you to join me on that challenge for 7 days.
They heard it live on the Living Your Greatness podcast with Ben.
That's it. They heard it live. I will definitely build that into my routine. So how can someone be more intentional with their time and energy so they can achieve balance in their life and have more fun and create meaningful relationships?
Man, everybody should hear just that question so that everybody can answer. Here's the truth, Ben. We've spoken about balance. We talked about clarity. Balance and clarity gives you something called awareness. And awareness is an interesting word because awareness, there's only two kinds of awareness. The awareness of the energies of self and the awareness of the energies outside of self. And you start to develop it. And here's the best way to describe awareness as far as I'm concerned, at least my opinion on it. Now, I only know Toronto radio stations well, so I'm going to use Toronto radio stations as my example. I'm not still up on the Ottawa stations. I want you to imagine that you're vibrating at a frequency that's 99.9, 999 hertz, or 9.99, whatever. At that level, Ben, you're feeling things emotionally that are at that vibrational frequency. Let's say you start giving yourself some self-love, you're starting to feel better, you feel uplifted. What happens is that vibrational frequency changes. So now you're vibrating at 102.5. What happens at 102.5 is now you start tapping into energies or superpowers that you maybe forgot you had. And then on top of it, the emotions that bothered you, the things that bothered you at 99.9, you've sort of transcended. Now those things don't bother you anymore. I'll give you a classic example. Somebody cuts you off, and what's your initial reaction? You flip them the bird. And then you say, hey man, why'd you cut me off? But what about if you were in tune with the energies and somebody cut you off, nobody got hurt, and instead of saying middle finger, you said, man, I hope everything's okay with that person. Because we don't know if their mother's in the hospital and that's why they're racing to where they got to go and they cut you off. We don't know that. We don't know what's going on in their life, but our immediate, so at that frequency, we say, here's the bird. But as you start to be more in control of your emotions, you start to recognize that those things shouldn't affect you. Maybe there's an initial reaction, but then behavior changes. And you start to say, wow, geez, I hope everything, nobody got hurt. I'm okay. My car didn't get, I didn't crash. I'm good. So I don't need to hold on to that anger, to those emotions. And that's what happens. By giving yourself self-love, you start to go up the vibrational frequency board with the hopes of changing how your outlook is on everything.
Wow. And you know what? It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I find when I think about when I've been my best, let's say, well-roundedness in terms of my energy, is when I feel grounded, right? Which I think is a big term, right? If you feel grounded with yourself, you feel composed. If you feel composed, you feel in control of your emotions, right? And I think that was a great scenario that you brought up there, is when we're not actually feeling that aligned with our thoughts, feelings, and emotions, we tend to think of the worst thoughts, right? So kind of like you had said there, thinking the worst reaction to they're cutting me off, me, right? Rather than if you were grounded, reacting very differently, right? with a mindset of abundance, right? And a mindset of this is okay. We're good. We're cool here. Right?
We're cool here, man. We don't have to get upset. We don't have to get all riled up because something happened. Imagine, Ben, if we could do that with all areas of your life. That's why I have to tell you, we haven't brought it up yet, Ben, but I'm a huge fan of Dr. William Glasser's work, Choice Theory. And Choice Theory was called the new psychology of personal freedom. And in it, the axiom of one of the 10 axioms of choice theory is that, number one, I can only control my own behavior. I can't control anybody else's. But that we are an internal control system. And therefore, we should not let the external psychology affect the internal. So all we do from the moment we're born till the day we die, till the moment we die, is behave. That's all we do is behave. Something happens, you behave. So what about if we were in control of how we behave, how we react to things? And as you get higher in your vibrational frequency, some of the most difficult things, you can have the reaction. You know, someone passes. My father passes away 7 weeks ago. Ben, I'm really at peace. My father, who was a great man, had 1 heart attack, 5 kinds of cancers, 4 strokes, and a hematoma in the brain, went through 6 outbreaks of COVID in his long-term care facility, didn't develop COVID, but caught pneumonia, and that's what caught him. But I mean, truly a fighter in his own right, you know. But I just have to say that when he passed, Ben, I was at peace. I was really at peace. And what flooded my mind when he passed was all the wonderful things. So yeah, it's okay to cry. It's good. It's a good release. It's important to cry. But then what happens after the cry? How do you behave after the cry? So we used to joke with some of my clients and say, we're in the McDonald's and Pornhub era. How do we deal with our stuff with McDonald's and Pornhub? So what about if we could change it? What about if we can change those behaviors because we're starting to really love ourselves, because we're doing the things that are important for us, and in doing the things that are important for us. And why? Why is that important, Ben? Because of this one reason. If you love anybody on the planet, anybody, then the best thing that you can do for them is become the best version of yourself.
Absolutely.
That's the best thing that you could do for them.
I couldn't agree more with you. And I feel that what you're doing is very aligned with what I'm doing, right? I'm trying to help guide people by bringing on great people like you to live their greatest life, and it doesn't mean it's always going to be perfect. Kind of like you said, there's challenges in life, there's roller coasters, but I do believe that people that are well balanced in their life, physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, those are the ones that will be able to cope the best. And so if we could all strive each day to get one step closer to where we want to go and who we want to become, it will happen. So Mel, you have helped hundreds of people step into the power and become the best version of themselves. You have worked with professional athletes, business leaders, entrepreneurs, and well-established billionaires. What is the most impactful thing your program did for a client that you didn't expect?
I'm very blessed, Ben, because I can very humbly say that through the vehicle of martial arts, the team at my school and what I did for the school and the effort and the passion that I put really helped a lot of people. I just think that help comes in an interesting way, because or the results come in a multitude of ways. I have had several people who I've worked with that within months completely changed their life. Quit their job, got divorced. And most people would say, well, that sounds terrible. Wow, Coach Mel, you did a great job. They decided to quit their jobs and divorce their partner. Yeah, I know it sounds bad, but what about if we had some sort of a talk on the old paradigms of what some of these words mean? What about if divorce, this was inspired by a client, but what about if divorce was a graduation of marriage? That you've grown as much as you can together, but now it's time for you to grow again as individuals. What about if everything that we did, we looked upon from a sort of a different set of lenses? So I've had clients that literally have quit their job. I had a woman who I talk about all the time, Ben, who she was a TTC driver. So she was a part of the Toronto Transit Commission. She was a bus driver in Toronto, and she used to pass by the sign where my school was, and she would always see it. She said, one day I'm going to go in there. Well, she did. And by doing classes, by giving herself love, by exercising, by getting the endorphins released into the blood, by doing some reflection and meditation, by hearing that you could go after your passions and be okay. You know what she did, Ben? She quit her 6-figure job to become a baker. She gave up her job not only because of the time, but because her son had some challenges mentally, suffered from mental illness, and was on the verge of committing suicide. And her quitting the job at the TTC provided her with an opportunity to save her son's life because she could devote time. And then she fulfilled her passion of being a baker. And I speak to her all the time. And she wrote me a letter saying, I would not have been able to do that if I didn't hear that it was okay to go after what you love, that it was okay to be passionate. It's okay to go after your passions. Her making that decision, Ben, saved the son's life. I think that's pretty impactful.
It really is. Thanks for sharing that story there, Mel. Very deep and very, kind of like you said, impactful. And it just shows you again, kind of something that you said earlier on today. We really don't know all the things that are going on in someone's life, right? Whether they are in one area, she was very successful occupationally, right, in her life, but there are many other areas. And it sounded like somewhere else in her life needed to be served, which was her family. And so I appreciate you for sharing that story as an example to share with people that's why it's important to make sure that our alignment with our passions, but as well as both our professional and personal life, is aligned. Something I admire about you is you are more than a clarity coach. You are more than a Muay Thai coach. You are a father, a husband, and have other life goals, desires, and passions. You have recently started a project called DudeBuddha, which is a website for men to share their thoughts and feelings about business, fatherhood, health and wellness, relationships, and wealth. Why is this project so close to your heart?
Yeah, so my partner, Tuan, which is, of course, I think our mutual friend, he is an amazing human being. And we started this because it was sort of by accident, really, because a lot of people, I call Tuan a bit of a tech celebrity. He had a lot of success in the tech space many years ago. And what he found most interesting is that all these people that were, let's call them what most people would think of as successful, because they've got a lot of the green. So they're successful. It's funny, we all say that there's this financial success, and we look at somebody and they're pulling up in a limo or they're driving a fancy car and you go, my God, man, geez, they're successful. Until you actually sit down and talk with them and hear the story. And this passion of DudeBuddha was created as an opportunity because most people won't go on a public forum and tell them share their most intimate feelings. And so what we decided to do was create an online invite-only space for men that provided a place for people to come and really be open, because your plastic chair 1, 2, 3, 4, that's your handle. Nobody knows who you are. And they come on there and they just spew, Ben. They just spew. I mean, like from deep within. They share shit that they would never share with anybody, not even the people most closest to them. It really is, honest to God, been the most incredible thing to read some of these posts that these men are putting up. They're talking about the relationships. They're talking about finances. One of my favorite that I read was, I love that this guy put it. So I think there's about 2 or 3 billionaires that are part of the group. And his post or his thread started, "A billionaire with a billion problems." And he said, "I have dedicated my time into making money and I'm very successful at it. I'm a billionaire. But I would trade in billions just so that I could have a relationship with my children or a relationship with my spouse." You know, Ben, that's what's powerful about this space, is that you get to see the real life, an experience, if you will, reading the real life emotions about somebody who's quote unquote successful. And you can start to see that even making money at that level comes at a cost. There's always an opportunity cost. And for most of these successful business people, usually the cost is their family or the people that matter to them, that are closest to them. So this space was created so people could come and share, and we could sort of, provide space where people can be open and vulnerable, because it's in that vulnerability that people will make changes. That's sort of a nutshell anyway.
Thanks for sharing that. I want to applaud both you and Tron for starting that up. I think that's something that a lot of men need more of. I feel like women do a really good job at a lot of things. Like they have their, like in terms of community and talking about their feelings and emotions. And I feel there's a lot of men that need more communities to be able to take off the mask and kind of share things that are important to them, how they're thinking and feeling. And so I think that's amazing that you guys have done that. I think that's an area that does need to be served. And I do think that a lot of men have to do better job, similar to women, at knowing how to find those communities, whether that's through an exercise group, whether that's through an online community such as yourselves. They need to find those areas where they could express themselves, but not just areas where they're going out and they're drinking. More areas than that.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, because there's this whole stigma around it, right? I mean, there's this whole thought around that, you're a man, so you shouldn't be, like emotional and stuff like that. And of course, I don't know why that started. I don't really get it. And I guess I don't get it because I'm like, I'd like to say I'm a very kinetic guy. I feel things very deep. And sort of always, it's always been, well, Mel, you're this big, tough Thai boxer on the outside, but you're like a little softy and so sensitive on the inside, But that's very true. And I'm very open with my emotions because I think it's important to share. I think it's important to get out. I think it's important to be vulnerable. Because again, in that vulnerability is when change happens. If we can talk about the things that we're most vulnerable about, then and only then comes something called healing. And it's interesting, Ben, because we didn't talk a lot about the sort of metaphysical side of what I do, but what the beauty about getting balance and getting clarity is that there's a flashlight that comes to all the dark areas of your life, all the dark corners of your life. And as you start to develop clarity, you start to understand what's blocking you from getting there. And so when you talk about all these wonderful questions that you've asked today about entrepreneurship, and then what Decorus Life is, and what a clarity coach does, and how this reflects back to a client, one of the biggest things that I found is I ask questions that help highlight some of the blockages that someone may have in their life. And then we talk about a plan on how to get over it and how to get rid of these blockages so they can go after their, what I call their desired states in that particular compartment or area of their life.
That's amazing. And you know what? That actually reminds me of many different quotes from Stoics, where they've said, you're one question away from changing your life, or a better question equals better result, right? So it sounds like you're making the time for these individuals to have that opportunity to question something to make them move forward and seek their best self. So Mel, as you know, the purpose of this podcast is to inspire people to achieve greatness and enhance their overall personal well-being. What is your definition of greatness?
Your mind is polluted and your heart will never steer you in the wrong direction. So for me, greatness is living a life that comes from a place of heart and not from a place of mind. Michael Singer in The Untethered Soul says, we are not our thoughts. We are the awareness that we have thoughts. And so if we can come to that place, Dr. Dyer called it the sponsoring thought, the initial thought that happens is the one that's from spirit. And then the rest is us taking it north to the brain. And I make a joke and make minestrone soup out of it because there's so many emotions and we make something that could be so small in our lives so big because we've taken it to the brain. And we got what I call, what's Dr. or Michael Singer says in the book, an unruly roommate. And it's called our mind. For me, greatness, Ben, is living from a place of love and living from a place of heart. Because if you do that, then what you'll do is you'll create space for others to follow. And that's important.
That's a beautiful definition. And it reminds me of some friends that I have that have added to that by saying, choosing love over fear, right? And essentially what they meant by that is choosing your passions, which might not always be the most comfortable decision, but the true or the right decision for you over, fear, right? So choosing love over fear. So who is a guest that you would like to see on this show?
Oh, definitely a guy named Kent Nurburn.
Who's Kent?
Kent Nurburn, Ben, is a guy is an author that wrote the book Simple Truths. The tagline is a clear and gentle guidance on the big issues of life. And Kent Nurburn wrote this small little, easily big font kind of book that you could read probably in an hour and a half. And he divided the chapters into the various compartments of your life: on money, on learning, on education, on loneliness and solitude, on love. And he writes the most profound pages, few pages on each of these topics. And believe me, Ben, I want him on my show. And I did write him a message because I found his page on Facebook, but maybe one day I'll get him. But if you could get a guy like Kent Nurburn, Ben, he's your guy, man. He's just such a remarkable man. The way he writes, very simple words with a lot of impact and a lot of meaning.
That's awesome. Yeah, I will do my best to try and bring him on. I will let you know too when that day happens. And where can our listeners go to connect with you online, Mel?
Yeah, so there's a number of places. So what happens is I'm doing DudeBuddha, I'm doing Decorus Life. I'm also still doing private training in Muay Thai, especially for kids because of the pandemic, because parents aren't so trusting in what's happening out there. So I go to their house and I tell them I'm double vaccinated, and it makes people happy. So I'm still doing Muay Thai. I'm doing some crypto stuff as well, which is kind of nice. So I'm doing a lot of these things, including a Twitch show. So my own live show that I have on Twitch, Twitch TV, Clarity Coach Mel. But decoruslife.com is my website. Crew Mel Bellissimo on Facebook, at Crew Mel Bellissimo on Instagram, and Mel Bellissimo on LinkedIn is where they can catch me.
Awesome. Great. So I will make sure to add that in the podcast notes there, just so everyone is aware of where to go and kind of simplify that process. But Mel, I want to really take the last moment here just to really thank you for your time. You've been very generous. And thanks so much for being here today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, my friend. Thank you, Ben. And thank you for thinking of me and bringing it onto your show.
Thank you for listening to the Living Your Greatness podcast. If this show has added value, please subscribe, leave a rating, and make a review.